Alrighty, we are now live. At least the 5-minute countdown is anyway. So folks, hopefully you're hearing me coming through. You should see the countdown and hear that music in the background. So if you can, those of you who are regular viewers, do us a favour, do the usual, drop us a comment in the chats to say that you can see and hear everything cool. In fact, I think I've just seen 𝐸𝐻𝐻𝐿 posting that you can. Wonderful. Technology's working fine. What could possibly go wrong? Alright, by my clock we've got 1 minute and 37 seconds to go. So folks, post in the comments, where are you? Where are you based? Jay Grammon's in Minnesota. Alrighty, we are live. Hopefully you can hear me. Hopefully you can see me. Yeah, another live week, another great guest. Looking forward to chatting with Hannah. I'm not going to waste too much time, but before I sort of dive into everything, I just want to sort of say I've noticed that Philip Norgard is in the chat there. Philip, just to say, I did get your email. You're coming over to South Wales. I am sure there will be a chance that we can meet up, and maybe Anthony as well, and we'll be able to tag along to say hi. So just wanted to make sure I said that. Right, so yeah, looking forward to this. Got quite a few things to go through before I speak to Hannah. We'll say quite a few things. It's an important thing, something that I've alluded to over the last few weeks about this community. What on earth is it all about? Well, I've got something on a show because today it's launched. You can now join it completely for free, and this is it just here. This is called the Photography Community. Look at that fella. God, he looks happy, doesn't he? And I'm going to play you now just a very short video, which is one I've put together, which explains what it is. It's just a very short thing, but this is it. This is day one, and anybody that wants to join me now, you're going to be the kind of founding members. You're going to be the people that will help me to shape this. But let me just play you this quick video, and then we'll get Hannah in. Hi, I'm 𝐁𝐞𝐳𝐿, and in this video, I just thought I'd explain what this photography community here on school is all about. Well, in a nutshell, this has all been set up with the sole purpose of just bringing people together. People like you and me that have an interest in photography, and no matter what experience or who you are. Now, I've been very fortunate over the years that I've been involved in this industry to have met and made friends with some incredible people that have been so incredibly generous with their help, advice, and support. And I'm under no illusion that had it not been for them, I doubt I'd even still be in this industry. The social side of photography for me has always been massively important and really valuable because, yes, I've learned from so many people that I've met, but also more than anything, every time I meet up with a friend that I've made because of photography, I always feel inspired and motivated. And this is what I want this photography community to do for you. Let me say, though, that this is most definitely not social media because, well, I don't think I'm alone when I say this, but I think social media has become more anti-social media these days. It's very opinionated, it's full of ads, and dare I say, it's kind of toxic. This photography community, though, is more like the forums that we used to have many years ago, before social media crawled out from under a rock. The forums were brilliant, but this is taking it a step further with live calls and meetups, and lots more that will be planned and put together as it grows. But what this isn't, though, is the place to just post a picture and wait for likes. It's not the place to offer unwanted opinion or critique or just self-promotion. If that's what you're looking for, then this photography community isn't for you. This isn't about one person. This is about everybody. Connecting, hanging out, and meeting like-minded people. So if this sounds interesting to you, I would love it if you'd join me and be part of this photography community and help me to build this from the start into something great. Let's make this the real social media where we can connect, hang out, meet in person, help and inspire each other. This photography community is completely free. I'm covering all the costs, although it might cost you a flat white when we do meet up. But I really do hope to see you inside. So that's a little bit about it. And this here, if you'd like to request to join it, like I said, it is completely free. Started today. That there is the URL. I've also posted that in the chat. So yeah, let's do this. Let's build this. It's brand new, but I am genuinely excited about it because, like I said in the video there, social media isn't quite what it's supposed to be. And this is what I intend this to be. Right. Okay. What else did I want to mention to you? Oh, yeah. The other thing here was the Southwest Photo Show. Talking of social, Hannah's going to be there as well. And after the Southwest Photo Show, we'll be hanging out. I don't know if Hannah will, but I will certainly be hanging out in the bar afterwards for a chat. And then the next day, we're going to go and do some kind of coastal photography. But there's the link for it. The Southwest Photo Show, swphotoshow.co.uk. There'll be me. There'll be Hannah's going to be there, which I'll be sitting in and watching. And there's other people as well. So, yeah, get along. It's £5 a ticket. Make a weekend of it. Come down to the sunny Southwest. Well, it certainly is at the moment anyway. Right. Hannah. Let's get Hannah in. But before we do, obviously, like every week, I ask the guests to send over some images. Hannah has got so many images to choose from. So she sent me a Dropbox link, and I've kind of just cherry-picked some that I kind of was drawn to. So I've grabbed about, I don't know, 50 and created this little slideshow this morning, which I'm really hoping Hannah likes. I've got my beady eye on her on the other screen, just over here, just to try and read the body language as you do. But let's play this now, and then we'll get Hannah in, because there's just so much that I want to talk about. So this here is the promo that I've put together for Hannah Couzens. Oh, good stuff, huh? Jesus. Right, let me just unmute her mic, which should have worked, and then I'll press this button here and say, hello, Hannah.
Hello, Glenn. Oh, thank you so much for having me. Do you know, it's so funny when, do you know, what's really nice is when other people look through all your portfolio like that. I find it so interesting to see what people choose, and it's so nice. That's beautiful what you made and put it together like that. That's gorgeous.
Your work.
It's
your work, mate.
Yeah, but it's so no, it's weird though, because it's like someone's showing it back to you, you know, because you know what it's like with anything with your website or your social media. I don't know if you get the same, but I end up looking at it and I'm kind of like, no, don't like it, fed up with it. I've seen it a million times, you know, and you kind of, just kind of, by the end of it, you're kind of like, no, you kind of could become like blind to it almost because you've seen it so many times. So
that's
actually when somebody does something like that and puts it together in a different way and it's someone else's vision, it's really interesting to see. So thank you very much.
No, that's lovely to hear because, you know, this is something I do for everybody that's kind of, you know, gives me the time, gives us all the time to sort of come onto these lives. So it's kind of like my way of kind of giving back, because I realized very quickly when I started doing these, and the folks who are regulars, they, you know, they've seen so many of them now, but every time the comments are wonderful. But it is just, it is brilliant to hear the photographer's reaction, you know, because at the end of the day, they're seeing their own work. but there's something
Yeah.
about it that when it's kind of put to music, somebody else has
Yes.
done it. Yes, it's almost like you're
100%.
seeing it again for the first time.
That's exactly what I mean, you know, it's like exactly that. I think that's because you've picked the tone, you've put the images together in what order, at what speed, and it is so. I think music is, you know, brings in a
Oh,
whole
massive.
different dimension
Yeah,
anyway, doesn't it? So
yeah,
it's
absolutely, it
yeah,
does.
I
Yeah.
think yeah, no wonder everybody's moved or, you know, kind of finds it interesting
Well,
because yeah, you're clearly very good at it, Glenn.
I enjoy doing it. Well, I was sat on the sofa this morning. I got up really early and I got Mabel the cat next to me, my laptop, and I was just doing that. So I just kind of put it together. But I mean, look at the
Awesome.
comments coming in here. Look, we've got straight away my friend Philip. He's just put straight away, Jesus Christ, what quality!
Oh, thanks, Philip. That's
He
really
got
nice.
fantastic work, stunning. My mate Anthony, absolutely stunning
Aw.
work, and I love your style. Lighting is spot on, such dramatic images. Lee Churchill, been a follower
Aw.
for a while, superb work. Trevor, what portfolio? Steve Healy, beautiful images. It goes on. Do you know what I mean? Some amazing
Thanks,
comments.
guys. That's so nice.
Yeah,
Oh
it's
no, now
lovely
I'm
to
going to be
see.
really British and get really embarrassed and go, ah, but no, thank you. That's
Oh, and I
that's
can
so
see
nice.
my friend. Yeah, listen, we've got royalty in the house. My friend Calvin Hollywood in Germany is in the house.
Ah, oh no, my German's terrible. Yeah, hello, Calvin. Like, thanks for
Listen,
joining us.
Calvin's English is way better than my German, so don't worry about it. But yeah, wonderful stuff, wonderful stuff. So Hannah, listen, there's loads that I want to talk to you about. I've got my little crib sheet here of stuff that I want to kind of cover with you. Hopefully, some of which I know. Well, I'm hoping you've never been asked before, although you've been on so
I like
many
that.
interviews. But before we kick off, this is going to be a hard ask. I know it's a difficult ask here, but are you able to give us a potted history of what got you to where you are now as Hannah Couzens, the photographer?
Okay, let's try it. I'll try and keep this brief because, of course, like everybody, there's lots of ins and outs of it. Right. So it started back when I was at school. I was always interested in the artistic subjects more than anything else. Like, you know, anything sort of hands-on. I wasn't particularly good at art. I couldn't paint or draw or anything like that. Still can't. Sculpture, I was better at. Craft design, making things, hammering things, sawing things, all that kind of stuff I was better at. But I couldn't really see a career path there. So it turns out that I had a friend of mine. Her father had a old, you know, Pentax K1000, and she was sort of showing me the ins and outs of it. Basically, we took it out in the rain one day, chucked a roll of film in it, and she was sort of showing me how to use aperture, what shutter speed did, etc. And when we sort of developed the film, or had it developed, I should say, we weren't doing it ourselves back then. When the images came back, I was like, that's it. The way that we've got the depth that aperture creates is the very thing that I wanted to be able to draw, but just couldn't really. And then of course from there, I left school at 16, went into college photography course, 2 years intensive. And yeah, just found my thing basically, and then I found lighting. So within that college course I found lighting. That was my thing, especially studio lighting. I just loved it. It was everything that it was all the things that I wanted to be able to do with a drawing, like create light, shadow, depth, all those kinds of things that I was never be able to do. And so yeah, left college, went to careers advisors, and no one knew what to say to me because they were like, try and find a job. Well, being on the other side of it now, we realized that so many of us work alone, so that's easier said than done. And then so they were like, work for yourself. I was like, I'm 18, like, you know, how do I do that? But I did. And so I started like doing what I could. I started doing like old Photoshop work of trying to fix people's old beaten up photos and things, you know, like very old photos. I started this little business when I was 18. And then I was sort of, for my 18th birthday, my parents bought me a studio set up. So these old Porta Flash, I think I've still got some of the stands actually. He bought me like a 2 flash head kit, a couple of soft boxes, you know, light stands, etc. And then I started going around to people's houses, so friends and family, neighbours, sort of, you know, friends, all those sorts of people, and we're just basically doing their family portraits, taking photos of their kids, all that. And I did effectively start a little business, and then from there I've got different kind of clients. A friend of mine, his elder brother was a designer, and he wanted to he had some jobs where he was like trying to involve photography. He needed visuals. He was getting me to do it. He got me to do it because I was cheap as well, because I was just a kid out of college.
Yeah.
But he was very good, and so therefore and obviously I must have been producing work that was decent enough, because all of a sudden in my portfolio I had Dell Computers as one of my clients, GlaxoSmith,
Wow.
not my clients, but the work that I was doing effectively for them, GlaxoSmithKline. There was like all these big name brands, and I'm like 19 and taking these photos in my front room kind of thing. So that worked out, and then I've really found that portraiture was the thing that I wanted to do. As great as it was to photograph these products, etc., it just wasn't I was getting nothing from it. I realized that photographing people was so much more interesting.
Right.
I then ended up moving
Well,
to
tell you
New
what,
Zealand.
let's just stop there.
Right, go on.
Let's just stop there for a second then, because I was trying to scribble that down there, and I know I won't be able ever to read my writing, because it just looks like my cat grabbed my pen. So
Know the
you
feeling.
mentioned there about we'll carry on. We'll jump on to the next bit there. But before we do, you just mentioned there that you realised that portraiture was your thing. That's what you wanted to do. On my crib sheet, I've got down here, why portraiture? What is it about taking portraits as opposed to, I guess when you compare it to kind of like products, there's no comparison. But why isn't it something like architecture? Why isn't it landscape? Why isn't it all this? What is it about portraiture that floats your boat?
I think really, so exactly that. There was a stark contrast between I found that taking a photo of the product, sending it over, and then getting a call back sort of saying, oh, the art director said, can you change the color of the pens in the pot from blue to red or something like that, and I was like, oh, go and do it. And it just, there was no, like, you do it, of course, and that was fine. And I know some people that it suits them very well, but I'm so much more social than that, Glenn. I like people. Like, I really am interested in people. I like the interactions with people. As I say, I find them very interesting, and therefore sort of starting, I feel like the 101 with portraiture is kind of, as you know, getting to know the person so that you produce an accurate portrait of who they are. So that's probably why I've not gone down the fashion route or anything like that. I really want to know the person. I'm not interested in what they're wearing or, whatever the location so much. I'm as much as possible about the person. And that's probably why most of my portraiture is very simple, and like probably a lot of it is simple in that it's one light setups, it's plain backgrounds. But it's
I totally relate to it though. I totally relate to it. That's I kind of like my stuff really. When I look at it, I keep everything as simple as I can, because I do want to kind of, not because I'm thinking, oh no, I couldn't possibly do. It's because you do want to spend more time, and I suppose you only realised it, or I certainly did anyway. Only realise it as time goes on, that it's not all about the fancy setups and all that kind of stuff. It literally is. If you're a portrait photographer, the idea is that you get that person out of the, onto the sort of sensor, isn't it? That's what it is. Now, I've spoken about this to, in numerous kind of things. My process for getting the most out of people and getting that real person out into a picture. We are going to go all over the place. I know we are. So I'm literally diving into this one now. So when you're photographing somebody, let's say somebody that you've never met before, or I don't know, have you met them before you do the photo shoot? I don't know. Talk about your process. Let's say if I was going to be a client, I fancied, right, I want Hannah Couzens to take my picture. Not for anything, not for a publication, but I want to get my portrait taken by Hannah Couzens. What would be your process? Let's say you've never met me. How would you get me on camera?
Good. It's a really good question, actually, Glenn. And there's kind of a couple of, I suppose we could sort of split that question in two again, because there's two sides to what I do, and I still try and pride myself as much as possible to connect with somebody, even if I'm doing a corporate headshot. Like the person that's been told they've got to have this photo done in the morning, they've been dreading it, they really don't want to have it done, etc., etc. I still want that person to come up to me next time I walk in that building and say, thank you so much, I was dreading it, but that's the best picture I've ever had taken. So that I still want to do that, even if I've got sort of 2 or 3 minutes with them. So There's a few things that I would really do, but let's say, and you are right. I mean, probably I'd say 95% of my photography is people that I've not photographed or met before. Like I've never seen
Mm.
them before. I don't know who's going to walk in next. So somebody said something really nice about me once, which I was really grateful for. They said you have an incredible ability to disarm people. And I thought,
Oh,
actually,
wow.
that's a really nice term, disarm,
Mm.
because that is quite true. Because so many of us come into things with all of this, whether it's kind of like, whether it's nerves, whether it's the vulnerability, whether it's the, whatever it is. And they were kind of like, whether it's in a social situation or, whatever it is, they're like, I don't know what it is about you, but you're able to disarm people.
Mm.
And I think the thing that I've learned most of all is that the only way to do that is to completely be yourself, because you know what it's like. People can smell bullshit a mile off. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel like the more you are yourself, the more the other person, how can you expect somebody else to do that when you're not being authentic
Yeah.
yourself?
Totally.
And
Yeah.
so I feel like that is the 101 thing. And when I was younger, perhaps I felt like, because I got started so young, I sort of felt like I had to make up for, the my age, kind of like I felt like people might think, oh, I was so young, I maybe haven't got much
Mm.
experience, maybe I should be really ultra professional. And I'm not saying that I'm not professional now, but perhaps the way I go about things is that I'm more relaxed in how I am, and I don't
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I've really got to sort of put anything on. um
Yeah.
and that goes for whoever I photograph. So but
I am
really what I would
sure. I am sure that. So for me, when I first started out in the early days, I'm sure from the people that I followed that I took some of their personality and put it into mine to think that's how I should be. Because I'd
we
seen it
all
with
do.
people. I don't know if you know Peter Hurley, but Peter has this
Yeah.
thing where, going back a few years ago, the shebang and all that kind of
Hmm.
stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's his personality. But
that's him.
I would see people trying to do it. And whereas Peter could do it and get away with it being the cheeky chappy, everybody
Yep.
else that does it, it's like, what are you doing?
I know.
It's
And
just
this
so
is
obviously not that person.
100% right. That's exactly it, because that's Peter, that's his thing, that's who he is, and that's him being himself. But you're right. The second that I do get it. I do understand that, why people would particularly try to emulate somebody else if this is new territory for them and they're not exactly sure how to communicate. And it's probably one of the most common questions I get asked is sort of, how do you put someone at ease? So
Yes, yeah.
really for me, it's kind of like a case of, before I even start, like I'll sit down and talk to them. I'll just talk to them about all sorts of things, not about the shoot. And I say this when I teach as well. I say to people, try to talk about anything but the shoot. So ask them, like, how was their journey there? What was they, was like, just elaborate on the conversation.
Mm.
Ask about them. If they're talking about, oh, my kids kept me up all night, I'll be like, oh yeah, know the feeling. How old are your kids? And I'm watching them. And what I'm doing in that time is I'm watching what they look like when they are genuinely smiling, when they're laughing, when they're listening, when they're thinking. I'm looking at all the different expressions so that I know what I'm looking for through the lens, if you know what I mean. I'm sort of thinking, okay, right, I can see that isn't their genuine smile. I can see that is something that they feel they need to do. So we've got to get there another way. So, or perhaps it might be that I've noticed that when they're thinking, they look a particular way. So before I shoot, before I hit the shutter button, I might sort of ask them a question. And I definitely do that with kids. When I'm photographing kids, I'm asking them all sorts of questions, because I love it when they're like in that thinking state, and then they kind of roll around and then they think of the answer, and then they look at you with excitement in their eyes because they've thought of an answer, and that's a genuine expression. So I try to sort of, I don't know, I'm watching their face very carefully. I'm trying to also just communicate with them, get them to calm as well, because everyone walks through the door a little bit stressed. They've had to find a place, they don't know what to expect particularly, don't know how it's going to be, and then they're reading you as well, and we mirror people. So of course there's sort of, if I'm relaxed, open body language, keeping this really casual, like I've done this 1,000 times, it's no big deal, it's going to be fun, we're going to enjoy it, like you start to see the shoulders go down and everything starts to just chill out a little bit, I guess.
I am, like I said, I'm going to go all over the tangents, all over the place at the minute. But we just said there that, you kind of said, I've done this 1,000 times, blah, 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 just chill out, relax. the thing that comes to my head when you said that was, as somebody who's been doing this photography now since, what, 18, 19 years of age, your first studio at 22. So you've done a lot of photo shoots, you know, portrait, headshots, families, and all that kind of stuff. When you've done that many, this is a genuinely curious about this, how do you stop that feeling of being another one? Do you know what I mean? When somebody's coming in through the door, because that, you know, we're all human. You must get to that stage at some point, or don't you? Is there something that you know you really have found your thing that you could keep doing this day in, day out, and you just absolutely love it, or what? How does it feel for you when you're doing them?
Pretty much good, yeah. I think that's it. And the reason I find that it's not like, oh, another one, is because everyone is so different. And if I'm photographing the person, it's very unlikely that you're going to have met that exact personality type, that someone with those exact features, these, like, you know, all these different quirks and different mannerisms, body language, all these things. Very unusual that you would get a similar thing. Now, don't get me wrong. As I said to you, I get a lot of my bread and butter work doing white background headshots. Yeah, that's what I do. You know, people hire me because I like them like I would a model, and direct them with 20 years experience. So they are looking a lot better than they probably would otherwise. But I mean, and yeah, like it's some people really don't get that, and they're like, oh, you know, like I turn up to another office and I'm like, yeah, it's another white background headshot. But I mean, yes, creatively, if I could have this person in the studio and do whatever I wanted and do the thing that would suit them, that would be way more fun. However, I've been hired to come in here and make all of these look uniform, and still, I don't know who's going to walk through the door. So let's make it interesting by connecting with the person and getting them the best photo we can.
Well, I think the thing that's sort of really shouting out to me now then is, if that's what it's like for you when you're doing this, having done so many of these kind of photo shoots, the fact that you say that, well, I don't know what they're going to be like, tells me that you are doing the right thing. It's you, isn't it? You are a people person, and what you're doing is right. The only reason I brought that up was because, you know, in the past, and I'm guessing you've seen it as well, is that you get certain photographers who've kind of, maybe they should have stepped away from what they've been doing quite a while ago, because they've got to that stage where they're kind of being a little bit going through on that conveyor belt. I mean, a prime example. I mean, I take my hat off to anybody that does weddings. I mean, that is seriously hard work.
Me too.
The one thing I really didn't like in the very early days at the idea of being a wedding photographer was that, you know, wedding photographers have certain venues that they know and they go to on a regular basis. And it's a case of, you know, I remember the one guy I was going around with, I was helping him. He was based up in Yorkshire, and he was a smashing guy. But what I didn't like was that we'd go to this venue, right, that's where I'll do that sort of shot. That's where I'll do that shot. And that's where I'll do that shot. And I'm like, oh, what? And he just felt like he was, you know, dragging them from one place to the next. And it just didn't seem to be much kind of feeling to it. Do you know what I mean? Whereas when I'm taking a portrait now, I am so into it. Do you know what I mean? And I guess what I do is very different to being a wedding photographer, but I still think you've got to have that, I'm going to use that word, passion. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think it's probably, I've shot 5 weddings in my life, and every time said I was never going to do it again. But then I said, I'm never doing this again. So as you say, hats off to people. And I suppose the only difference that I could really foresee is the fact that you were on such a tight deadline, because this has to be done, and then they've got to sit down for dinner at this point, then the speeches have to be done, and I suppose that I guess I can kind of see why some photographers would have their set things of what they were going to do in each venue to know that they nailed it. Is my only guess. But it wouldn't be for me, or absolutely 100%, exactly. I completely agree with you. No, me neither. No, for numerous reasons, but no, I agree. I wouldn't. I think when it starts to fall into that way, then I feel like it would probably be a bit too dull. But picking up again on what you were saying earlier about that thing of you first start out and you keep things simple, and I've done exactly the same thing. I've sometimes felt that my style was perhaps a bit too boring and a bit too simple, and I've thought, oh, maybe I should be doing things more complicated than this, and I should be doing 5 or 6 light setups. But then I kind of did that. And I went, does it make the picture any better? Does it actually make it better. And it's in some cases yes, in other cases absolutely not. So I really have a bugbear now for things being lit for the sake of being lit. I'm like, if you're putting a light there, put it there because you know why you want to put it there, and it's
Yeah,
got a
yeah,
specific job to
100%.
do, you know. So
100%.
I think we all do, though. I think we all experiment in different styles, perhaps styles that we like that we've seen from other people, etc. And I think that's good in some ways, because it's quite nice to dip your toe in the water with absolutely everything, and then perhaps you might take a little bit of something from somewhere and something from another. You know, it's like ingredients. You know, you might take influence
Yeah,
from
yeah,
different sources to create your own recipe, but
yeah.
yeah, I think
I
ultimately
agree.
to do what you love is and do what's true to you and what you
Yeah,
really
yeah.
enjoy is ultimately
All
going to
right,
be
so
the key.
I'm coming to see you then. We've never met before. We're having a photo shoot, and I'm guessing that the first time we meet, or you tell me, is when I'm coming to your studio. We're gonna have a photo shoot. So I'm not somebody who's used to being photographed. When you kind of sat chatting to me, I'm just curious, how is there a kind of time that you give it, that you go, right, we're just gonna sit down, have a coffee, have a chat for this amount of time first, or what? What's your kind of process before the photo shoot? How long would you normally spend with somebody, or is it just kind of case by case basis?
It is pretty much case by case, but I tend to say it's not as long as a coffee. You know, it'd be quicker than that, because I kind of feel like you need to also get going, because if people are a bit nervous or whatever, the only thing that's ultimately going to get them settled is to start, and for them to realize, oh, this isn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, and actually this is quite fun. So a prime, yeah, like, say, I was going to use an example, but as you said, you gave me you as an example. So you would be
It's a
coming
bad
in, and I
example
would
though.
just pretty much say to you, I'll just be like, so what? I'd ask questions. I'll be like, what is it that you do? And I'm genuinely interested in people. So a few weeks ago, I had a guy come in. The guy has won BAFTAs. He's won an Oscar. Like, he keeps it very quiet, and like he's he does the sound in movies. There's a correct
Oh
term,
wow.
but it's gone out of my head. And when I like
Your other half will
afterwards,
know.
sort of like, yeah, oh, he'll know for sure. But he's probably looking at the screen going, oh, now. But he was very you can tell he's the kind of person that likes to be at the back. You know, he's the kind of person that likes to do the sound and the other stuff, but he doesn't want to be the other side. However, he has to be at times because of the nature of who he is and what he does. So what is it that we know about people that's easy? My mum, bless her, one of the things she said to me was, she said, always, if you're stuck for conversation, Hannah, always ask people about themselves, because they always know the answer. They haven't got to think too
Yeah,
hard.
yeah,
And that's
yeah.
always stuck with me. But what do we know about people? They really come alive when they're talking about something that they enjoy. So I was asking, he was telling me, you know, because you got to gauge it, because I was like, oh, we don't want it to feel like I'm, you know, I think you got to, I think, be careful how you ask the question. But if you're, you know, asking the question from a genuine interest that you actually mean it. So I'm asking this guy, I'm like, okay, so I was like, forgive my ignorance, but I have no idea. How do you even start putting music to a film? Like, you know, like, where do you even start with that? And so he starts to tell me, and I'm like, wait, so you have to do this first, and I'm asking questions, and the guy is just getting more animated. And again, I'm watching him, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
he's getting more animated, and he's telling me this, and I'm like, hang on, wait. So you're telling me you could get all the way to that, and then the director will cut it, and you've got to do it all over again? And it's like, oh yeah, like, and so I'm asking him about himself. I'm asking him about his job, but with genuine interest. And I'm not someone that has any issue with not knowing about something. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
I have no,
Yeah.
I'm not. If I don't know something, I'll be like, I'm sorry, I don't know what that means.
The thing I
So
always, I've mentioned this to people on here before, but the one thing that always sticks with me, and I just wish I could remember who it was that gave me this advice years ago. But when you are talking to somebody that maybe you've never met before and you don't know what to talk about, this person I remember telling me to say, imagine they've got 4 letters on their forehead, MMFI, make me feel important. So
that's good.
talk about them, their likes, their dislikes, and stuff like that. So it's like when I was doing the veterans thing, I didn't want to. It would have been so easy for me to talk about the war. Do you know what I mean? It's like, how many times I've been asked about that? So I would ask about everything else, because it's like, hold on a second.
Exactly.
There's nearly 80 years worth of life since the war. Surely you've done something else.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? So you talk about that kind of stuff, family, work, hobbies, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, MMFI, always remember that.
That's it.
So,
that's it. And you're exactly that, Glenn. Like the most obvious thing to do, especially if you're taking a portrait of a veteran, you're gonna, you'd think, oh, well, didn't you ask them about this or that? But that's exactly not what you want to ask them about. Exactly like you're saying, there's a whole lot more to them, and I think the more, especially if you're photographing people that perhaps have been in the public eye or who are quite famous or whatever, I think they often find it refreshing that you don't ask them anything other than simple things like
just talk to them like they're a normal person.
Things. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. So, and I think then then people relax.
There's something else that's just coming to my head here as well, and I'm guessing there's just a real simple answer to this, but when you've got somebody coming in, I won't use me because I'm a bad example, but somebody else coming in to be photographed, and it's not necessarily going to be the white background. They want something that's just, I want you to photograph me, and you decide how you want to do it and what have you. Let's say that you kind of formed an opinion about, right, I'll use this kind of lighting style on them, but then they turn up. Does that influence you? Will you sometimes look at a person and go, oh, now I don't know if that'll work on them. I might try this instead. Is that something that ever comes into it?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Because I was going to say half the time, well, I'd say, again, probably about 90% of the time, I don't know who's going to walk through the door. And that's literally the first time I've seen them. Because someone said to me, they're like, do you Google your clients? I was like, no, I haven't got time. I haven't got time to do that. Like, no. But yeah, what I do find, and I will openly say to people as well, I'll say to them, like, right, I'm going to start like this. And then sometimes I'll be going down one road, and I might be sort of looking at sort of certain features or how they look when this is in shadow, when this is in light, etc. And then I might think, but this is me. I have no filter. I will then say to them, I'll be like, I was like, we've done this now. Do you mind if I'm going to try something? I was like, it may not work. Like this really may not work, but I'm just going to try it and see how it goes. If you got time, are we cool with that? Is that fine? And no one ever says no. And what's really interesting is that when you do that, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it always works. There's definitely times where I go, oh no, we'll stick to how we are. I don't say that to the client, by the way. I don't go, oh no, that's dreadful.
God, you suck looking like this. Oh,
yeah, I'm like, oh wow, I shouldn't have lit you like that, dude. No, we don't say that. But yeah, exactly. There's times where I kind of will go, yeah, perhaps it didn't work out, but then that might take me somewhere else. So it's like a evolving process, if you know what I mean. I might turn up with one idea and completely, end up in another place. So it's quite fun.
All right, so here's another one then, because I want to ask, because I'm going to compare what you do to what I do then. So when you're photographing somebody, do you shoot tethered, yes or no? You don't shoot tethered. Okay, interesting.
Nope.
Do you ever show, in that case then, do you ever turn the camera to show the person during the photo shoot, or do you wait until afterwards? Or do you show them at all?
So it depends. So it does depend. So firstly, I tend to not shoot tethered. Unpopular opinion, I know, but I actually find that for me, and I know, and it depends on how you work, but for me, I like to be in the zone with the person and there not be any distractions, and I'm looking at what I'm trying to, I'm like, hold on, I think I can see when they're getting to where I need them to be. But you know what happens? You take a shot of someone and their eyes are back and forth, back and forth, back and forth to that screen. And yes, of course, I mean, because in my studio, my TV screen is on the wall, so that's one thing. Sometimes I'll have the TV screen, the computer screen towards me. Yes, there's ways of doing it, of course, like that, where the client doesn't see that, of course, so that they can't keep eyeballing back and forwards to, as a sort of distraction. But I find even models do it when I've got models coming in, and even if I'm doing a workshop or something, they'll kind of like look over to the side, and there's,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
sometimes I don't like I mean, I'll take a bunch, and then I'll sort of know, when I feel like I've got to a good place, I'll be like, okay, let's have a look. Or I might sort of stop the session sort of 15 minutes in or something. I'll be like, should we have a look? See what you think? And then they have a look at the back of the camera,
Right.
and I'll be like, right, are we in the zone? Where are we? And that could be the point where they're like, oh gosh, I really thought I was smiling more than that. This is mainly for corporate,
Yeah.
and I'll be like, they'll be like, oh, I look a bit stern, don't I? I'm like, that's fine. I was like, it doesn't look bad, but if that's not how you want to come across, then yeah, perhaps we should work on making this a little bit more relaxed. So that's when it's good, because you then know what exactly they are looking for, or sometimes they think they want it to look a particular way or very formal, or whatever.
Yeah.
And actually, when they see it, it's time to change. But no, sometimes I will go through a whole shoot and I won't show people, because I kind of feel like I know what I'm getting, and I like it to be a surprise. So
Okay.
it's I kind of, and especially with
I,
family shoots as well. That's
I, I was in,
if I've
I was
ever
interested what
photographing
you
family shoots.
just. I'm gonna just quickly butt in there, because one thing I was interested what you said then, that you wait till the end sometimes to show them. I was wondering if you were going to say then, because you were because you are a people person. I got the feeling that you're able to read the people you're with. Whoever comes into your studio to be photographed, you can adapt to their style. Do you know what I mean? That kind of thing.
100%.
I just wonder that sometimes maybe would you not show them, because you kind of get a feeling that if I show them, I get the feeling that no matter what I show them, they're going to find fault. Because there are people like that when they go, oh no, look at that, my eyes are big, one eye's higher than the other. Oh no, I don't. Because that's the danger, isn't it? If you do show them in the start of the shoot or midway through, it could come and you say, oh yeah, you need to look, you're not looking quite as relaxed. Maybe we can work on that. And they go, no, look at the state of me, and it just wrecks it. Has that ever happened? Where you had somebody?
I mean, I haven't had. I suppose no. I get, what have I had? I've had somebody that, I mean, she had just cut and dyed her hair like a completely different color, and the issue was not. I could tell quite quickly when I was like, no matter which way, whatever I did or anybody did with her at that point, she was not used to how she was looking at that point. So
Right.
no matter what anybody did, and not just me, so I wasn't going to take it personally. I was like, no matter what anyone was going to show her, she wasn't in the right place to accept how she was looking right now. So I said, you know what? I tell you what we'll do. I was like, I think that what's happening here is that until you're settled and used to your hair and everything like that, I said, I don't think whatever we do, I don't think this is really going to change. It's like, how about we leave it like this, and then why don't you come back to me in 2 or 3 weeks' time and see how we get on? Sure enough, she comes back. She's curled her hair. She's styled it differently. She's dressed differently. She's wearing different makeup, and we're good. So
That's cool.
some of the time it is not exactly that. There will be some people where the issue, no matter how you photograph them, it isn't there might be an issue where they're just stuck there and they ain't getting no past it until like it is something like that that's new to them, cut their hair off, or they might have gained weight, lost weight, whatever it is, or something where it's a bit of a shock, or perhaps they're not seeing how they want to see themselves, and that's beyond measures that you can control through lighting, posing, all of those sorts of things, if you know what I mean.
Totally,
doesn't happen very often. But no, I sort of there will be times, especially if you've got a nervous client as well, I will wait for the nerves to go, make sure I know that I've got some really nice shots in there, and then I'll show them, and they'll be like, who's that, me? And I'm like, well, there's no one else in here, so yes, that's you. And then they're kind of like, then you can't stop them. They're kind of like, they're posing by themselves, they're doing it all, so you're exactly right. I think it's the case of reading each situation, and kind of doing what you can, and there's, and even on corporate shoots sometimes, but there's been some people that are like, can I see them quickly, is that allowed? And I'm like, yeah, it's not my point, you can see them fine. They're like, oh, can I just change this hair? And another tip, though, I would say to anybody that's watching is, before you take a single photograph of anybody, get them to look in the mirror. Yes. Because then when they come back to you, that is how they want to look. because the last thing is that if somebody comes in and they've got a bit of hair out of place or something, you don't want to say to them, oh, you got a bit of hair sticking up, and then you find out, you're like, no, that's just how they wear their hair. And they're like, yeah, that's how I wear it. And you just insulted them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, good point.
So I always think that, you know, if you get them to look in the mirror and then they come out afterwards, you know, at that point, that is how they want to be seen. So if then anything changes, you can be on the lookout for it and go, you know, pretty much from there.
And if they've got a mark on their face, never lick a hanky and wipe it off.
Can you imagine?
Can you imagine doing that? Listen, right, we've been going, I mean, already 47 minutes. Can you believe it?
I know.
Boom, goes like that.
No.
Let's have a very, very quick break. So we can have if you've got a glass of some in there, just have a quick slurp. And then I want to ask you about something that I'm kind of guessing has made a big impact in you as a photographer. It might have, it might not have. So I want to ask you about that in a moment.
Interesting.
But I'll mute your mic. We'll play a quick ad, and then we'll be back. So back
awesome.
in a mo. All right. All right. Let's just play a quick ad. I won't do that BenQ one again. For some reason, right at the start, it started halfway through, which was kind of weird. Seems to do that. But let's just play this one here, which is my new love child, the Westcott FJ800. Oh, get in. I remember that advert finishes quite quickly. Lovely jubbly. Right, let's just unmute. There we go, and then bring her back in. That's I love that because that I'm using that light there. And for those who are watching, I mentioned about the Fuji medium format, medium format Fuji. Oh, that's coming next week. Get in. Starting using that with the FJ100. Right, anyway, listen. I was giving it all that with that rocking music then.
Did you see me? I was like staring at that.
I saw you leaning forward
going,
ooh.
I was like, oh, what's this here? I love breaking down a stove. I love it.
You geek. Right, anyway, listen. The thing I was alluding to was... obviously, you know, you're starting out 18, 19 years of age. You know, you're the youngest in history, I think it is, that getting the award, awarded and what have you, and qualified with the British Institute of Professional Photographers. You get a studio at 22, which is just incredible. So you've been doing the photography, you know, for a number of years, and you've developed a style. You know, you're doing the portraits, the families, and stuff like that. And the families is the one I'm kind of thinking about here, because then something significant happens in your life. You become a mother. Okay.
Yes.
So what I'm interested to know is, has being a mother changed you as a photographer in any way, when it's specifically when it comes to doing the family shoots? Do you feel that you approach them differently or not?
That is a very good question, Glenn. And I'm so glad no one has asked me that.
Oh, cool.
But it's a really good question, because the answer is yes, it has changed. And I've photographed, this is my 20th year in business. I photographed all kinds of people, all sorts of things. But there's nothing like going through something yourself, no matter what that is, to really look at it in a different light. And so therefore, when I photograph people that are pregnant, I know how they feel. I know exactly how they feel physically, all of the being all over the place, and the excitement, the anxiety, all those things that come with it the first time. Then there's the second time, that you're pregnant again, and then you're double knackered because you're looking after one kid already, and then you don't know how you're going to feel when you've got two, and then you're trying to do life in between. You just look at things so differently, and perhaps perhaps I can be more sympathetic towards it. And the same with kids. And one thing that I have noticed is that I think before I was always so worried about making sure that everything was technically perfect. Like you've got a picture of a child, and perhaps they turned their head or something, and you've put a rim light up and it's just caught the side of their cheek or something, and but they're really laughing, and I'd be caught in this dilemma of, do I put it forward to the client or not? Because if they choose it, which inevitably they're always going to choose it, I'm always going to look at it and go, but it's not technically perfect. But now when I look at photos of my kids, I couldn't care less about the other stuff. When you get that look, or when they look a certain way, or you see them in a particular way, they look at you in a particular way, they get an expression, you couldn't care if the whole thing was really out of focus, really. You just it changes your perspective, and it changes it. You definitely take a different view on it. But that can go in, and I think that's with other things in life. It doesn't have to just be with family and kids. I've been through other things. I've lost a parent. I've lost my mother. So now another thing that I do in family shoots is I make all of them, and I make the mums that are sitting on the side get in for one photo at the end, and I send it to them, even if they don't sort of choose it. It's not, and I don't ever charge them for it. Even if they choose it, I ask them to choose another one because I made them do it. But I have a handful of pictures of myself and my mum together, which I'm so glad that we did, and only a very small number of portraits that I love that what I did take of my mum. I wish that I'd taken more, but I'm just so glad that I have what I have. But you don't realise the value until it's gone. So it makes you look at other aspects. I think the more life experience you have, having a cancer scare myself, having surgery, things like that, suddenly when you meet other people that have gone through the same thing, and everyone's fighting a battle, everyone's going through something, you can just sympathize and relate, obviously certain aspects more than others. But you're right, I think your own life experience definitely comes out with how you with your photography and how you connect with people, for sure. But very good question. That's really interesting.
I was just really curious, because what sparked me to think that was when you said about earlier on when we were talking, you said about having a family there, and you're kind of like judging how people are, and you might look at the kid and the kid's giving it all that. I thought, I wonder if you're more connected with the kids now that you're a parent. Are you noticing things about the kids that you wouldn't have noticed before? That's what kind of came into my head. So
definitely. Yeah, definitely. I can kind of, I mean, I've always been fortunate in that I've been able to kind of get them to do what I need them to do by, letting them help me with the camera, like being, kind of get them in slowly, rather than, parents can sometimes have a tendency to bring them in and like, sit there, do as you're told, and, and then it's never going to work. Because even if they're sitting there looking terrified. So I've always had a different approach of like, why don't you come over here and sit with me, and I'll sit where I need them to be, and I'll get them to press the test button on the flash or something or whatever. But I can definitely read kids differently now, and I know very much sort of when you're at the point of time to stop before they go. You're like, okay, now they're just on the decline, so let's wrap this up.
Funnily enough, Lee Churchill's just posted it, which is kind of connected to that. He says, "Are you more tolerable to kids now?"
I don't know whether tolerable would be the right word necessarily, because kind of.
Are you more in tune with them?
Probably, and more so with the parents. I know the stress that the parents are going to be going through, because they're going to think, oh my gosh, I just want the kids to behave, and you're just like, it's cool, don't worry, I get it, I know what they're like. The kids aren't supposed to behave, they're supposed to be kids.
That's it. Well, my friend Anthony's just put here, Hannah, are your kids the hardest to photograph? Asking for a friend.
You know, Anthony, this is it. This is it, 100%. And I always say this, is that it's so much easier for someone else to photograph your kids than it is for you to do it. Because, and that, I think that goes with all family members. You know, when you're first starting learning and first starting out and practicing your lighting or something like that, and then you get sort of a family member in, it's bad photographing your family members because you're so short and blunt with each other, you know, like it's you know, one's
just
like,
relax.
oh, you done yet? Yeah, yeah, exactly. Just relax or smile.
Look
Smile properly.
happy.
You're not smiling. You know, we talk to each other in such a way that you wouldn't speak to anybody else. That I think that it's probably one of the worst things you can do.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'm conscious of time, but what I want to do, I'm going to quickly scroll through here. Where did Anthony asked about it? Oh yeah. Because I remember distinctly when we did do the He Shoots, He Draws podcast chat. I forget how long ago that was now.
Oh, a long time ago, yeah.
In fact, I don't think you were a parent then. You definitely weren't.
No, I wouldn't have been. It was only COVID. COVID's to blame for that.
Oh, right. Well, Anthony's put here. He's put, Hannah, I vaguely remember the story, but I'd love to know if you did anything differently for Vinnie Jones. The images clearly show that you obviously had a good rapport. So, yeah, I love that shot. And I remember we spoke. You're gonna have to remind me of the story. I'm sorry if you're gonna have to repeat this. Where is it? Here we go. Look, here he is.
Not at all.
In fact, last night, me and my wife were watching that kind of like the sort of fly on the wall thing that he's doing. Do you know what I mean? In his place, beautiful home he's got. But can you just tell us the story for those who didn't hear He Shoots, He Draws? Those of you who've never heard the story before. Tell us, give us a kind of like what happened. How did you get the shoot with Vinnie Jones? What was he like? I know we're going completely different subject now, but how was it? No,
this is good.
What was it all like?
If we've got time, we're not going to cut off in 2 minutes. Then we're good.
No. I control the timer.
Okay, good. We're good. Right, wonderful. So, how it came about was I was contacted by a flooring company, believe it or not, and I was like, what? This is bizarre. I was like, hang on, flooring? I don't do products kind of thing. And they were like, oh no, we need some promotional images of one of our business partners. And I'm like, yeah, okay, fine. Yeah, no problem. And then they're like, oh, it's Vinnie Jones. And I was like, okay, yep. And what is it that you're looking for? And they said, oh, we want him to be the face of, the company was called 𝐸𝐿 Jones. So it was, a guy called Danny 𝐸𝐿 and Vinnie Jones, and they partnered together to make the flooring company. I think they were long childhood friends or something, and it was just a joint business venture. So that was what it was about, and they needed some promotional images of him. They'd sort of sent me a couple of mood boards, which were kind of like your typical, well, they're all a bit different actually, but these ones were kind of, black background, 2 kickers, hair light in the front, the full length, all that kind of stuff. And I was like, yes, fine, no problem, I can do that. When it came to the shoot itself, then things escalated. Another brand wanted to join in because there was a crisp company. They were launching salt and vinegar. Yep. No. I don't think that flew. Yeah, no. I don't think that went anywhere. So the only reason I'm bringing that up is it's quite important because so there was that company and then their company, and he was booked in. I'd got everything set up, I got everything ready. That was completely different setup, completely high key, everything like white out behind, very, very, very high key. And there was going to be him with the crisps. And so when their team turned up, they said, oh, we want to do some shots in the studio, but we also want him to go into the pub and sit with a pint and the crisps, like in the pub, etc. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Yeah, whatever you want, just tell me what you need. Yeah, I was like, well, there's a pub across the road, just do what you want. So the car pulls up, he comes out, I open the door. Hello, afternoon, nice to meet you. In he goes. I'll shut the door. So of course, somebody, this is when I had a shop, like the shop front. So of course somebody starts walking in the door. I was closed on this day and starts asking me about family portraits. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm not open today, but here's take a brochure, and of course he's got in and the team's behind me. And I walked it back in again and I was like, the atmosphere is as cold as ice. I was like, oh, what's happening? I was like, okay, this is weird. So I just was like, okay, fine. Like in my usual manner, I was just like, get on with it, be professional, get the job done, do what you need to do. These people don't have time, don't make chit chat, just get on with it, do what you need to do. Went upstairs, I had an assistant with me, and we adjusted the height for him, got in, bish bash bosh. But before we started, he was just in a really bad mood. And I was like, oh gosh. I was like, well, I'm just going to do what I needed to do. You know, knock them out, did what I needed to do. Then I was shot tethered so that the art directors were seeing the images as they were coming up. That was all fine. And then he would go in, do what he needed to do, and then he'd come out and be like, are we done? You know, and I was like, oh, not to me. And I was like, geez, this is bad. And then he was like, is there a coffee shop around here? And I was like, yeah, there's tons. This is across the road. And I said, I can go. He was like, you're not going anywhere, love. You're staying here. He was like, he can go. He can go. And I was like, okay. He was like, no, you're one of the most important people here. They can go instead. And I was like, this is awkward now. And I stepped out of the room and spoke to my assistant, and he said, Han, you didn't realise what happened. He said, when you were outside, they asked him to go to the pub and have a pint and the crisps. Well, he doesn't drink, does he? That's his whole thing, is that he's teetotal and he doesn't drink. So he got super pissed off because they'd asked him to go and do this. Right. I was oblivious to this.
Know your
I
client.
Had no idea.
I know,
client. Right? I know. So like, I didn't even know that this had happened. I just walked into Frost, you know. I didn't even know what was going on. So, but anyway, so he obviously, because he was annoyed with these guys, so he sent them off across the road to go and get the coffees. And during that time, I was just, you know, I'd done the pictures. I was just going back on the, you know, over the computer with the art director. I was like, have you got everything that you need, etc. And it was like, good job, love. He's like, how long have you been here, love? Yeah, and I was like, I've been at this building. I've had this one for 7 years now. I was like, I was in another one before that, and blah blah blah. He was like, yeah, I remember. He said, are you from around here? I was like, no, I grew up in Enfield, and I was like, you can't tell accent difference, and yeah, we were chatting away, and I was like, oh, this is so different. This is crazy. And then I don't know. He was super nice to me. He was just super nice to me. I think because I was just doing my job and just talking back to him normally, answering, asking about him, etc. It did help that I knew what had happened. And then this image right at the end was really interesting, because I said as we were shooting, we had a lot to get through, and I was pulling back, and I was like, I'll just check in, Danny. I was like, these, as they were coming up, I was like, ththese are full length, right? Not 3/4. He was like, yeah, full length, please, Hannah. I was like, yeah. I was like, sorry, I'm a nightmare. I'm such a portrait photographer. I want to get in and do a headshot. And I was like, that's fine, and carried on. And then Vinny says, "Is like, Dan, are we done here? Is this? Are we finished with your stuff?" And I was thinking, oh God, I just pushed it too far. And he was like, yeah, we've got it. Yeah, we've got everything that we need now. And he went, right, Hannah, this is your time. You shoot whatever you want. And I was like,
wow.
Are you serious? I was like, seriously? I was like, I thought you wanted to go. I was like, that's what I was being. He was like, no. He said, you said you were a headshot photographer. He said, you shoot what you like. I said, well, I said, are you serious? I said, because I just want to change your light around. Have you got time for that? And he was like, yeah. He was like, yeah. He's like, why are you trying to do that? He's like, you're 5 for nothing. I was like, and then he started moving lights for me. He sat down, holding his own. I was like, do you mind holding that reflector? And people were like, there was a couple of behind the scenes pictures, and people were saying to me, they're like, I can't believe you made Vinnie Jones hold his own reflector. I'm like, why? He's strong enough. He's a big guy, isn't he? Like, you know, why not? I photographed him a couple of times, and that was interesting, because that was one of the images that I did. Interesting what we were saying about your style, etc., and doing something that you feel. And that was one of the images that I felt I wanted to light it a different way, go down a different route, not have eye contact, do it a little bit differently. And I just shot that and did it for myself, and then it turns out that was the image they used anyway. So even though they'd come to me with something else, so sometimes you just got to do what you feel. But no, it was lovely. Story. So I know. So the difference, I know, that's why I was checking how long it was that we had left, because it's quite a long one. But the difference, I suppose what I'm saying is the difference from there to there.
Churchill's reminded us in the he's reminded us in the chat here when I was saying, I can't remember when we spoke about it on He Shoots, He Draws, but Lee Churchill's put it was episode 35, which goes back to, what do you reckon? When do you reckon that was then? Have a guess. When do you reckon?
Well, it's obviously pre-COVID, so 2018.
Oh, well done. September 2018.
Oh, look at that.
That's still quick though, isn't it? That's crazy.
I know. Crazy. I figured it must have been because of everything, because I remember it just before the shows and stuff. So wow, that's amazing.
All right, well listen, we have I mean, not that we have to kind of stop, but I'm conscious of time. I don't want to take the mick having you on for too long, because I would like to get you back on in a few months' time. But
I can chat.
let me just quickly press this here. Press my little graphic. There we go. Cool. And then it'll bring us back in. I just like pressing buttons. I'm getting out here. Right. I've started some comments. There's some lovely comments coming in here. I mean, people like the Vinnie Jones thing there, like Stuart's put here, awesome. Anthony, legend. Kirsty, just brilliant. Lovely, lovely comments. But one thing I wanted to ask you, in fact, no, I just kind of don't know why I came up with this. Right. 3 quick fire questions.
Yeah, let's go.
It's right. So here we go. Studio or on location?
Studio.
Zoom or Prime?
Oh, Prime.
Lightroom or Capture One?
Capture One.
Oh, okay. Ooh.
I don't really use either, to be honest. But no,
go on then. Don't tell your Bridge. You use Bridge.
Photoshop. I'm old, Glyn. I used the first Photoshop that came out. I still use Photoshop. So,
on disc.
Yes, remember that when you got the disc and then you couldn't find out where you.
No, I had a pirate copy. Listen, right. Let me just. I'll go through. I don't know if there's many questions, but there's tons of comments. There's one here that Stuart's put, which I'll come to in a moment. But yeah, I mean, just loads and loads and loads of comments. Chaz has put, Hannah is a fantastic teacher on studio lighting.
Thanks,
fantastic to find.
I've just seen the comments button.
Which one?
We've gone through this whole broadcast and I didn't realise.
Oh no, that's good because you weren't distracted. No, that's a good thing. But I mean, there's tons of stuff here. But let me just I'm trying to scroll through here. Linda N has put, Hannah, you have a love of humanity and capture each person's true soul's nature in your photos. Just beautiful.
Oh, thanks, Linda. That's so nice.
Interesting one here.
People are so nice.
I know, lovely. We've got a great bunch on here. We've got Mike here. Mike has put a really interesting one here. Have you dealt with neurodivergent kids? And if so, how did you get through it?
Yeah, I have, and that is a case of taking so much lead from the parents, and because obviously they know they know their kids best. They know what triggers them. They know, kind of what is going to help to settle them, what is going to be a challenge, etc. So, a lot of prior conversation with, and it's got for me, it's got to be prior, so that you want for the second that they walk in. For you to try and make things as relaxed, comfortable, and as best as possible. So understanding what it is that you can do to make that environment feel safe and as best as possible as you can. No one is going to have a better insight into that than the parents, of course. So yeah, that's what I do, definitely.
I think if there's anything that I'm, the one thing that above all that I'm taking from this chat, which I'm really pleased about, is the fact that the one thing that's coming through to everybody is people skills. This is all about people. It's not about technicals. It's about people skills. It really, really is, isn't it? Because you're talking 100%. At the start, keeping it simple. You got your style. You like to, one light. And if I have to use another one, then I need to know why I'm using another one, not just because I want to.
Right.
But it's all about the people skills. So yeah, massively important.
Two things I'd say is that you could be technically the best photographer in the world, but if you have no connection with your subject, then it's game over. Secondly, I've recently trained somebody that thought they wanted to open a studio and was into lighting and everything else, and they were exhausted by how much of the connection, and like you need to know you need to know what you're doing, your direction, your lighting, all of that, like the back of your hand, because so much energy comes from here to be able to connect. So yeah, it's a big one.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Just finished off here, some comments. Lynn Smith, Hannah, very down-to-earth person. I'll second that.
Thanks, Lynn.
Lisa, Hannah is such a natural and genuine photographer, and this comes through in her work. And there's what's this one here from Norman?
Thanks, Lisa.
Norman's put, never heard the psychology of this portrait role explained so well. Wonderful session. Thank you both for a great chat. Thank you, Norman. That's very kind.
Thanks, Norman. That's lovely. We get two portrait photographers together, and then
there you go. There you go. Well, listen, we're going to wrap up. I will play your promo again, folks. Those who aren't following Hannah on social, there's her Instagram handle just there. But before we go, let's see if you can give us the answer to this question here. In all the time that you've been a photographer, what would you say is the best bit of advice, that one bit of advice that you've been given that's been the most powerful, impactful, whatever other adjectives you want to use, but the bit of advice that you've been given that you'll always sort of stick by?
Okay.
Spot.
Portraiture is 80% personality, 20% skill. Controversial. Heard it when I was 16.
I'm with you. Totally with you.
Thought it wasn't true. Turns out it's pretty true.
Yeah, 100%.
So I would say that. I would say that's probably the thing that sort of sticks in my mind. It's not technical, it's not anything like that, but it was something that somebody said to me when I was 16, and it took me a while to get my head around, and I thought, how could that be possible, etc. But I think if you're really going to connect with someone, then probably that's probably it.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. God, the comments are still coming. Fantastic.
Oh, thanks,
they're all there. Look, fantastic live tonight. I've loved it. What a fantastic session.
Oh, I can see them now. Oh, I'm so glad that I haven't been able to see that. But,
well, cool. Right. Well, listen, we're gonna have to wrap this up. I've thoroughly enjoyed this. This one has particularly raced by. It really, really has. I knew it would be good fun. But if you're okay with it, come on in a few months, 6 months' time, whatever. Yeah. Let's do it. But obviously, I'm looking forward to kind of catch up and do in person again, because we haven't seen each other in person for quite a while. So you'll be down at the Southwest Photo Show. Here we go.
Yes.
Here we go. The Southwest Photo Show. There's your
come and
URL.
See us, guys.
Yeah, we'll be there. Looking forward to that. Should be a good one. It's the very first of its kind, so it'll be interesting to see how it goes. But if Mark Baber's behind it, it'll be a good one.
Oh, I know. That's why I said yes. I know. If it's anything to do with Mark, it's going to be great.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Be awesome.
Cool. All right. Well, don't disappear. I'll see you in the green room. You'll see lots of things happening. There'll be a little bit at the end when I'm running across the screen. Then the screen will go black. Then I'll literally? Be with you just to say quick, well, yeah, literally will. And then I'll be with you, all right? But listen, from me and from a very busy chat room, Hannah, you've been a real hit. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me, Glenn. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Really appreciate it, and your lovely comments. Thank you.
Cool. I'll see you shortly. All righty. There you go. I knew it'd be good. I knew it. What a hit. Just so easy to talk to and just great storyteller. So, and blooming lovely images. We'll see those again in a moment. But just before I close this down, then just a reminder of the admin. In fact, the first thing to let you know is that we will be back next week for another live. I'm so looking forward to this one. This is my friend Randy Van Dynen, who is an architectural photographer in the USA. I have known Randy for nearly 20 years. Press the wrong button. There we go. And Randy is, when I was first teaching out in America, Randy was one of the guys who would kind of look after you when you were out there. Like, he'd look after the room where I had all the people in, and he'd do the comparing and all that kind of stuff. Little did I know back then, I found out a short time after, how good this guy is at photography. Just so kind of just gets on with it. Do you know what I mean? But wow, what a talent. You wait till you see his architectural stuff. So I'm really looking forward to having Randy on. That'd be a great chat. The other thing to let you know about, again, just a reminder, so happy about it. This photography community is we're now taking it, taking up memberships. If you want to join us for free, completely for free, just head on over to that link there. And then when I'm getting a few through, we'll eventually start letting people in. But this, I am so looking forward to. There's a lot of work gone on behind the scenes. This is going to be how social media should be. Do you know what I mean? It's a safe space for like-minded people to hang out, to connect. And that is the focus of it. This isn't about sort of just sharing images and getting likes. This is about generating connections. And there's a big thing in there already that is to do with the map. And as the membership grows and we all start to get to connect with each other and share advice and all that kind of stuff, you'll be able to see where people are. And, the idea is then that we can be able to meet up with people, and it's just going to be great. I'm so looking forward to it. And I've got to thank my friend Calvin Hollywood, who was in the chat earlier on, who's just been such a massive help with it. He really, really has. So thank you to Calvin. So there's that. Obviously, the Southwest Photo Show's coming up, but that's it. What a fantastic guest. Well, I've loved this. I really, really have loved this. So, folks, thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to play out with Hannah's promo one more time, and I'll have a quick chat with her in the green room. But I will see you same time, same place, Sunday 20th, which I think is Easter. For Randy Van Dynen. I'll see you then. Thank you so much for joining us this week. Have a good one.